Hi, Martha. It's so nice to see you.
Hi, Elise. Good to see you too.
Great. Why don't we start off a little bit about just who we are in our roles, and then we'll get into moderating and learning all about AARP's marketing strategy. Does that work for you?
That's great. That sounds
Okay,
good.
great. Good. So, I'll start. I am Elise Perlmutter, and I am with Ampersand. I am part of our client partnerships team. And if you're not familiar with Ampersand, we are a national sales, data, and technology company in the TV space. We are jointly owned by the largest cable operators, Comcast, Spectrum, and Cox. And most importantly, our brand differentiator is our scale in multi-screen inventory, as well as scale and TV viewership insights. So with that, Martha, could you tell us a little bit about your role at AARP?
Sure. Thanks, Elise. So I'm the Chief Communications and Marketing Officer at AARP. AARP has about a 98% brand awareness level. So I'm sure that almost everybody here has heard of AARP. But let me just spend a minute talking about who AARP is. We are a not-for-profit, nonpartisan social mission organization. And our mission is to empower people to choose how they live as they age. We have 50 state offices. We are a significant advocate at the national and the state level on issues, financial issues, caregiving, healthcare issues that affect the 50 plus population in this country. I should also say we're 60 years old. We were founded 63 years ago now. And the other thing is we're a significant publisher. We're both an advertiser and a publisher, but we have the most read magazine in the country. It's called the AARP, the magazine, and you have to be a member to get it. It's read by 38 million people. And for the fourth year in a row, we just got our MRI numbers and we're yet again the most read. And we added about 500,000 readers under the age of 60, which of course was exciting for us. So in my role as the Chief Communications and Marketing Officer, at a high level, I'm responsible for creating a clear brand voice. AARP does a lot of different things, and we are always striving to make it clear that we are advocates. We are a wise friend and a fierce defender for all of the 50 plus. And so at the highest level, that's what I do using all the different channels that AARP has. And like most brands, we're across social. We have these enormous print publications. We're on voice, in podcasts, pretty much all the different channels and the different platforms that you would expect. But we have a couple other things. Because we have 38 million members, one of my challenges as CCMO is consumer experience. And about 7 years ago, we stood up a CX practice, which is now having a significant impact on the organization. We take almost 500,000 calls a month to our contact center. So we have our finger on the pulse of the 50 plus in this country, day in and day out. Of course, digital marketing is my responsibility as well. And really, it all comes down to integrating all of the different channels, all the platforms, all the different priorities, all the themes, all of those things. So it's a challenging, but a really exciting job being a social mission organization, but using all the tools that, all the for-profit world uses as well to communicate with their customers and their audiences.
Great. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your audience strategy. And if we could talk about the power of the 50 plus from an economic standpoint and longevity, I think that would be a great place to start.
Yeah, thanks, Elise. All right, so this is a key statistic that people are always astounded at when I say it. The fastest growing age group in this country is 85 plus. And the second fastest growing age group in this country is 100 plus. So when you think about it, I know, right? So when you think about it, when you get to 50, you have half of your life to live. And, I always say it's a more complicated half, because leading up to 50, in a lot of cases, it's very much about getting your career established, getting your education under your belt, really setting in place a lot of building blocks for your life. When you get to 50, life is more complicated. Perhaps you have a spouse or a partner, you have children, maybe you're in a caregiving situation for your parents or friends or aunts or uncles. You're starting at 50 thinking, how long am I going to work? And by the way, that's getting longer all the time. And so when you hit 50 and you look ahead and you say, I've got half my life to live, you start having a different perspective on things. You start planning more, start focusing on your healthcare more. But here's what we know at AARP based on our research. We call it the longevity economy, which is the financial muscle, if you will, of the 50 plus, which is about almost $8.5 trillion. So, come on, when you get to 50, right, you've usually incurred a lot of, you've bought your house, you've tried to pay for college, you've done all these different things, and you start accumulating, more assets. So the 50 plus as a demographic, as a market for marketers, has enormous financial resources. And the other thing, Elise, that I think is this, and this is a key point for marketers, is that the 50 plus lifestyle is one of vibrance. People are traveling, they're working, they're getting some perhaps additional education, maybe they're caregiving, all of these different types of lifestyle activities that drive consumption. If you're working, you're buying different types of clothes than if you're not working. So at 8.3 is a number $1 trillion in economic wealth in the 50 plus. This is a market that every single brand, regardless of what industry you're in, every brand should take a look at.
I'm blown away by the 100 plus stat. I think that the Al Roker and the team that does the Smuckers birthday, they better rethink it. They're going to have a lot of people.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, I've seen something that says that there are those in the health community that believe the first person to live to 150 has already been born.
Oh my God.
150. So, that's whether or not you want to live to 150 is a different issue, but longevity, right? The concept of longevity is something that we all need to get our minds around.
So Martha, talk to me a little bit about the fragmentation that we see, how folks consume media. How do you find what works best for this 50 plus crowd as far as media consumption?
Yeah.
How are they getting it?
That's a great question. It's a great question because every marketer, every communicator wants to spend the least amount of money to be able to reach exactly the people that they want to reach. And so when you look at all the data points, they usually break down between 70 plus and really kind of 55 to 65, in these different ranges. One thing is pretty universal. Whether it's a 50 plus, 60 plus, 70 plus, they're on social. They're on social. The difference in engagement in Facebook in particular between younger audiences under the age of 50 and 50 plus audiences, the difference is very narrow. There's almost no difference in terms of the percentage of those consumers who are on Facebook. It's a little bit different for YouTube. YouTube is the second most engaged with social platform. But of course, magazines, believe it or not, magazines are still very appealing to all age segments, not just the 50 plus, but all age segments. There's something very tactile about holding a magazine, right? It's a different type of experience than news consumption. So anyway, so we've got social platforms are number one. TV is a very strong platform, especially for the 60 plus. And you know that, Elise, better than everybody. And also radio to some extent, not so much newspapers because those, news is consumed on Twitter, on Facebook, on other platforms. But media consumption is across the board with the focus on social.
You had shared with me that you recently launched a new branded TV campaign that really increased your brand equity. Can you share a little bit about that process, the success of it, the feedback that you got, et cetera?
Yeah. So for the first time in 3 years, we launched a new brand campaign last year. And it is what we call our Wise Friend campaign, where we're talking about the role that AARP plays in people's lives, half of their lives, in terms of the information and the resources we make available to people. And so it's an intergenerational spot. The tagline is, the younger you are, the more you need AARP, which is surprising to people, because people think, oh, AARP, I don't need to pay attention to that brand until I'm retired. And nothing could be further from the truth. Because, you know, the best way to save for retirement, the best day to start saving for retirement was yesterday, and the second best day is today. So the resources that we have are appropriate for all ages. So our brand campaign taps in to the power of intergenerational relationships and the concept that as a brand, we serve that role as a wise friend for half of people's lives on the issues that matter. We have seen enormous increases based on our campaigns like we've never seen before with the 50 to 60 segment. Which was very gratifying for us, right? Because there's so much that people need to do in their 50s and 60s that we can bring to them as they look to the second half of their lives. So the fact that the campaign resonated with that audience, we were very happy about that. And we have 3 themes. We've got one on happiness, which did the best of our 3 topics. Happiness did the best, because you know what? People can only eat so much broccoli, and then they've got to have ice cream, right? We talk about financial resilience. We talk about healthy living, and the happiness one, and making sure that your happiness lasts as long as you do. That really resonated with people.
That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about kind of the process. I know you shared a lot about, you know, some of the data points. Like, how did some of that, you know, help form some of the creativity of the unit and the imagery?
Well, you know, imagery is a really crucial issue, and I would encourage every single person on this call to look at the imagery that their brands use in communicating their brand value. Because again, if you go back to the fact that a third of the people in this country are going to be over 60 before long, imagery and brand relevance really make a difference. So in our campaign, we were absolutely focused on the intergenerational component, and also in showing people in active lifestyles. The big misconception about the 50 plus, the 60 plus, the 70 plus is that this is a time of life when you are sedentary, you are not vibrant, you are isolated. And most imagery shows people either isolated or in caregiving or dependent types of situations. Our imagery does not cover that. But you know what? Let me be clear. There are people, and they're not just 50 plus, that have mobility issues, you know, that have chronic disease issues. And yes, as you age, your body changes, and you need more healthcare, right? And more access to healthcare. But the fact is, people want to see themselves in the reality of their life. And most people are working, they're caregiving, they're involved with their families, they're traveling with their friends. And our imagery made a point of capturing that vibrancy. And other brands that are looking in whole or in part to this demographic, it is absolutely essential that their imagery on everything from their website to their marketing materials show intergenerational relationships and multi-generational people living the life that is a reality of how they live today.
And how are you using some of the data to, you know, either measure some of this, to know if some of the conversions are happening, you're getting a larger audience? What are you using and how is it working?
Well, of course, we're tracking data from our brand campaign right down through the marketing funnel to see where the most conversions come from, and also what the journey is that brings people into the AARP ecosystem, if you will. And we take a look at which of our materials, what of our information and our campaigns resonate the most with them. And what we realize is that depending on where you are, when you're in your mid 60s, a very, very big part of your life is transitioning onto Medicare. And so we've spent a lot of time for that, I don't want to say it's a micro moment, but you're applying for Medicare when you're 64 and that's it, right? You have to do it then. And so we have a very defined journey around that. When people age into AARP membership at 50, there's a whole series of other issues that they need to start thinking about, or that they're already thinking about, which is why they come to us: caregiving, finances, healthcare. Like I said, people's bodies change, arthritis becomes an issue, being active in sports, and things to take into consideration. So I should point out that our magazine that goes to 38 million people has 3 versions. 50 to 60 is what we call the A book, 60 to 70, and then 70 plus. And in each of those editions of the magazine, 30% of the content is just for that age segment. And one of our features is called This is 50, and it's wildly popular with our members. So we segment out certainly by age and then by lifestyle, but we find that lifestyle is more the determinant of the kind of materials that people are looking for, almost more than age, because again, you're 50 and working, you're 60 and working, you're 70 and working, and financial resources are important across the board.
Yeah, that makes sense. Over the last 2 years, I'm curious to hear how and if you had to pivot, and if you did, and with any of these strategies, what worked and what didn't, and what were some of the learnings? I mean, this is called obviously setting the stage for 2022. What can you kind of bring towards this year that you're hoping that, you can, all the learnings
from the last 2 years?
Yeah.
I mean, every brand has had learnings during COVID, and unfortunately it continues. The number one thing that we did in the moment, literally March 13th, when the CDC declared it a pandemic a year ago, almost 2 years ago, is we changed our news function, and we made it much more about breaking news. We had almost moved into a news bureau type of setting with 24/7 updates about the evolving situation with COVID, so that we could be that trusted voice, that wise friend, talking about COVID from the 50 plus perspective. And as we all know, COVID disproportionately affected older Americans in terms of sickness, severity, and ultimately in death. So we became a trusted voice. Facebook put us as part of their COVID information center, right up there with CDC and public health schools. And we saw tremendous traffic to our COVID resources on our website. We typically were about 26 million unique visitors a month, driven to a large extent by the COVID content. So being relevant in the moment, being in the right channels. I mean, we all know that if somebody wants to hear personal stories, they're going to be on Instagram, they're going to be on TikTok. If they want news, they're going to get it from Twitter. So we really took a deep and quick look at how we were packaging our content across all the different channels, and we continue to do that. We also have a pretty sophisticated voice of the consumer, what we call VOC, voice of the consumer function, where we listen across 13 different listening platforms, so that we know on a daily basis what issues they're concerned about and what they want to hear about, and we drive content based on that. We saw that people were losing their jobs. The 50 plus were losing their jobs more than ever. So we stood up a very sophisticated job board, and we really increased the volume of tools for helping people to get a new job. And really it was about playing to the strength of our brand, which is trust, and being on the platforms. People were looking for trusted information on a regular basis. And that continues today, and that won't change.
About 6 months ago, I did an interview with somebody in the fitness space. And one of the learnings that I got from the interview was the fact of the sense of community for the older audience, because over the last 2 years, obviously we've been home. I wonder from your perspective, because the 50 plus, obviously, what kind of communities were created, or did you get any feedback on, any of those types of relationships that you were able to build over the last 2 years that might have been different than your past strategies?
Yeah, Elise, that's a great question. And And that is in fact a learning from COVID. In addition to the other things I was talking about, we have what we call specialized content. We have 4 newsletters that are for a very, very specific segment. We have one called The Girlfriend for 45 to 55-year-old women. We have the Sisters newsletter for 45 to 55-year-old African-American Black women. We have the Arrow for men, which we just launched. And then we have the Ethel for 60+ women. These are communities. They are newsletters. They are happy hours. They are book clubs. They are defined communities. Each one of them has about 450,000 people who interact in those communities in a really vibrant way. And sharing stories and helping each other through stories of gratitude, funny things. I mean, so those have really gained tremendous momentum during COVID. And then the other thing we did just a year ago, is we started something called the Virtual Community Center. We realized that we wanted AARP to be in people's lives on a more regular basis with things that really matter to them. So all of our states, all 50 state offices do events all the time. Everything from our Illinois office did a piece on the Nutcracker Ballet over the holidays, and our Florida office does yoga programs. And we decided with all of these programs across the country, why don't we pull them together and make them available to whoever wants to participate? So a yoga class in Iowa that got 130 people typically got 3,000. The Nutcracker Ballet that evening probably would have gotten about 200 people. It got 8,000. So we used an event platform and our marketing ability to send out information about all the activities going on, and people cluster around what they like. Fitness is a huge area for the 50+. All of our yoga events, all of our online classes, they all max out. It's very popular. And then people come back, but it's really in addition to the sort of the learning and the educational platforms, these newsletters and the communities that are built around them are exploding in popularity. And even as they get bigger, they are still vibrant with tons of interaction and engagements from the audiences.
When you are thinking about your strategies, do you kind of look at it? I know you said by age, but you just said something that just made me think, do you have to look at it by, is it all national one messaging, or do you, because there are 50 states, do you kind of segment it also by what might work on the West Coast, which wouldn't work on the East Coast? You talked about lifestyle, and sometimes by state, we have different lifestyles, warm weather, cold weather.
Yeah, not so much by state, but by lifestyle. And this is the other thing, when people think about certainly AARP, but the 50+, they are thinking only of age. And if there's only one thing that people remember, it's that when you hit 50, you and I can have one lifestyle, and the next people next to us have a completely and dramatically different lifestyle. We have to play for how people are spending their money, which dictates what their lifestyle is, what's important to them. But the other thing we know is if you have a really vibrant lifestyle at 68 years old, you're 68. You're on Medicare, right? You're probably making other healthcare decisions. You are thinking about retirement. We know the issues, the life issues that people are going to hit when they get to 50, 55, 60, 65. And so we know based on age, the kinds of information that we need to be serving up to people. And so it's less about state, although as advocates, absolutely, we're in every state capital across this country. And so all of our advocacy work is driven by what is important on the state. But lifestyle things, it's more about that a combination of age and how people live.
Is there anything that you had done that didn't work, and how did you fix it or rethink it?
Yeah, I'll tell you what didn't work. And this is a big issue that we're dealing with right now. For many years, we spent money on a campaign by campaign basis in specific channels, right? On very specific audiences. Our KPIs were tied to those campaigns, at a discrete moment in time. And that is not how you build a relationship with your audience. That is not how we build a relationship with our members, right? And what we realized and what we're doing now is really looking at the journey that people have with our brand when they see our fabulous brand campaign. They go, that's interesting. Maybe there's more here than I thought. And they come to the landing page, and then what happens? Or when we are marketing a financial tool for women in their 40s, and they engage with it. In the past, it would have been, oh, okay, here are our engagement numbers. Well, now it's like, okay, and then what? So what didn't work was highly optimized specific campaigns. What is going to work for the long-term health of our brand and our relationship with our members and all of the 50 plus is for us to take them on a journey that is relevant to their lives, that helps them make decisions so they can live the way they want to. So all that optimization, siloed, campaign specific, that stopped working for where we need to go.
Yeah. Is there anything in 2022 that you're excited about, or something new that you're doing?
Well, I'm excited about that. I'm excited. It's a lot of work when you're re-architecting an enormous marketing operation. It takes time. I mean, this isn't something that gets done in 2 or 3 months. But I'm excited about it. We are making progress there. We're innovating how we show up on different social platforms. We just relaunched on Pinterest, and our engagement went up like 2,000%. And Pinterest, of course, is a great channel for us. We launched on TikTok, and we're seeing wonderful results on TikTok. So I'm very excited. We have AARP Studios, which is a full studio production. We also are doing a documentary on purpose. And we have a book division, and we had our first bestseller last year with Sanjay Gupta on brain health. And I'm excited this year we're launching a book on nutrition, unique nutrition needs for the 50 plus, because that book has never been written before. I mean, we have it now, but I'm excited to see how that goes. So across the channels, there's lots of innovation going on, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results.
That's exciting. That's exciting. Okay, so have you met any celebrities that have been on either the cover of the magazine or?
Well,
I've seen it.
a few years, we have this. So we have a franchise called Movies for Grownups. It's 20 years old this year. Every year we had an awards ceremony. It's been virtual for 2 years in LA, where we give awards to talent, to producers, to directors for producing movies that appeal to the 50 plus and employ the 50 plus right in front and behind the camera. And we do it with PBS now for the last couple of years. We've been with PBS. So we're doing that. So a couple of years ago, we gave the Lifetime Achievement Award to Kevin Costner. All right. So if anybody hasn't seen Yellowstone, you got to see Yellowstone, right?
It's on my list.
And we do all of our own photo shoots. So the cover of the magazine had Kevin Costner in a Western setting with a flannel shirt on. And his wife was at Movies for Grownups, and she said that was the best photo of him she'd ever seen. Well, then we just had Matthew McConaughey and George Clooney. But yeah, I mean, our magazine is a lifestyle magazine. It's fantastic. And then we also have a sister publication called The Bulletin, which is really more about news you can use. It's about advocacy and fraud. We do a lot on fraud education for people. So yeah, I've had the ability to meet some of the celebrities, which is fun. And some of them, Bruce Springsteen's agent basically called us a couple of years ago and said he wanted to be on the cover of the magazine. This is when he was releasing his last album, because he knew that those were his people, right? Ours are his people. And he was going to do one interview, and it was with AARP, the magazine, and he was on the cover. So that was exciting too.
I mean, forget People magazine. You guys, you're just.
Oh no! Hey, when we did a huge story, Tony Bennett's family came to us with his story of his struggle with Alzheimer's. His wife came to us and said that she wanted us to tell his story, which was a great honor for us, as you would expect. That was in the last couple of months, and yes, people said, okay, you guys scooped us on that, fine. So yeah, we do take pride in that, believe me.
Any advice for marketers who are changing maybe their strategy to go to this older demo, or how to kind of even share some of those newer ideas with colleagues, that they work with, and kind of how do you shift from what you were doing to a new idea?
This is what always surprises me. Marketers, communicators are data people. This is about the data. And if you look at the data, you cannot ignore the 50 plus market. You just can't. It's an entirely new market. And I think the old way of thinking is, oh, well, if we focus at all on the 50 plus, that's going to age up our brand. There is more money in the 50 plus than there are the other age segments. So I don't know how a marketer could ignore it. The other thing is, a few years ago, I was sitting down with this CPG company, and they said that they wanted to try and understand this age demographic better. They wanted to understand the aged consumer. I go, okay, so first of all, you can't use that language, right? That's not how these people think of themselves. And not only that, but most brands that develop a relationship with people early on, let's say in their late teens, early 20s, and they cultivate that relationship, and then they get to the point of 50, and they go, okay, now we're done. Now we're going to go back to a younger audience. Like, wait a minute, you know so much about these consumers. Why is it that you wouldn't continue with them through their life's journey? So we have to examine our own personal attitudes on aging. You have to look at the data and understand the enormity of this market, domestically and internationally. And then you have to really spend the time to understand the lifestyle. Just people need to look around them. I assume that everybody has friends. If you're not in your 50s, you have friends who are and older, and look at what their lifestyle is. Consumption is driving the 50 plus. And I'll just say this because I know we're running out of time. Multiple pieces of research have shown over time, your happiest decades are your 50s and your 60s. And so there's a lot to look forward to. There's, financial resources that are available. There's vibrant lifestyles, and marketers need to see it for what it is. It is an entirely new market.
Well, it's funny because in the chat, somebody wrote, so many people are angry all the time. I love focusing on happiness. So that's great.
Oh, good. That's great.
One of the questions is, how do you activate marketing against engaging consumers in your purpose initiatives?
Well, first of all, it's interesting, purpose versus social mission. We're a social mission organization, so we're always, that's what we do, is we are working for the betterment of people's lives, financial lives, health, their health care, their happiness, all of these different things. In terms of purpose, we really put a fine point on people who do life-changing things with their own lives to drive purpose. We have something called the Purpose Prize that we give every year to a variety of people who have started nonprofit organizations addressing a particular societal issue, whether it's, a hunger issue or education or media literacy or whatever it is. So we shine a light on the power of purpose in people's lives and then we also provide organizational support to nonprofits in that space so that we can help them be more effective.
Great. Another question is, AARP has benefits for all ages. How are you combating the belief that AARP is not just for the older population?
Okay, so I don't know if that may have come from this. In July, I think it was June or July, there's a TikTok influencer. His name is Zach Abel, who former actor, great guy, who is all about travel hacks and travel tips and traveling, inexpensively on rewards points. Unbeknownst to us, he did a video on AARP travel discounts, and he pointed saying that you do not have to be 50 to join AARP. We only market to the 50 plus, but anybody of any age can join AARP. And you would be astounded at the number of people under the age of 40 that joined AARP because that one person pointed out what our commercial benefits are. But I have to say, I'm on the parent side and we're a nonprofit. I am not able to, and I do not market our business relationship benefits, what we call our commercial benefits. Our sister organization does that. So I couldn't do what Zach did, but Zach pointed out that you don't have to be 50 to join AARP. We just don't market to them.
Right. Well, that goes back to you said the success you've had in the social arena, which probably plays in part.
Yeah. That was pretty amazing. I mean, he did multiple videos about AARP. And they really are quite charming, actually. And it was a lot of fun.
I know we're almost up for time. There are not any other questions, but I know one of the things that you and I talked about when we were chatting before we did this panel was a little bit about some of the negative I don't know, you were talking about specifically in the card business, right? Like Hallmark. And when it's like someone turns a certain age, how there's kind of this negative connotation. And it's really great to see how you've turned that into a positive. Is there any advice you can tell people also about something like that? Oh no, I'm turning 50 or 60 or 70. And how do you make that happiness and that positive?
This is such a huge issue. And as I said earlier, we all have to challenge our own deeply held beliefs and fears about aging. And yeah, as I was saying, if you go look for a greeting card, a birthday card for anybody over 40, forget about it. They all use humor about, bodily functions and gravity and gray hair and relationships and all that kind of stuff. And they're funny to some extent, but after a while, it's just like, really? Is that all we have to say about, I hope everybody on this call gets to 60 and 70 and 80, God willing. Aging is aging can be whatever we make it. And there was research recently that had a direct linkage between people's attitudes about aging and their actual physical health. So I would say this as we close: people should challenge ageist comments and they should challenge ageist beliefs. If you sat in a meeting and somebody made a racist comment, a sexist comment, you wouldn't tolerate it. But yet research shows that people who will stand up to racism and sexism won't say anything when it comes to ageism. We have to challenge that. We're all aging every day, right? And so we have to challenge it. And we also have to be willing to own how old we are. But from a professional standpoint, in the workplace, especially in professional services, that can be a very dangerous place to be. So I'll just close by saying we are working every day to fight ageism for today's 40-year-old who 5 years from now is going to hear their first ageist comment, and today's 30-year-old who's going to hear it as well when they get there. We are fighting that every day. And I would ask that everyone who's participated today stand up to ageism and don't tolerate it, because if you're under 50 now, you're going to be there. And you know what? We all have to work together on this.